One Piece is filled with so many interesting characters, with different abilities, and most of the fights have become really fascinating because of this. So I thought it would be fun to actually make a list of the top 30 strongest characters in the One Piece series currently. Now with this list, I'm going to go through some rules before we begin. First of all, I'm not going to include any dead characters in this list. I am mainly looking at the top 30 strongest characters in the series currently who are alive, so characters like Whitebeard and Goldie Roger will be exempt from this list. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting with number 30 on my list, I have Lucky Roux from the Red Hair Pirates. Although we haven't really seen him fight, he has been one of the oldest members of the Red Hair Pirates, which is an Emperor's crew. So I can't really put him much higher since he hasn't really shown much for me to put him any higher. For number 29, I have Yamato, the child of Kaido. I put her here because she does have great knowledge of the 3 categories of Haki, including Conqueror's Haki that can be used to increase her attack power. Yamato was strong enough to take an ulti of the Tobiropo, who was shown to be very durable, which is an impressive feat. And we also see Yamato being able to fight toe to toe with Kaido himself for a while when Luffy was recovering, which is also pretty impressive. So I think number 29 seems fair for Yamato. For number 28, I have King the Wildfire, the right hand man of Kaido. There's no mistake that King is really strong. I know it might seem King is a bit low on this list, but I do think that out of all of the first mates of the Yonko crews, I think he is the weakest one. I just don't think he has shown a lot of great feats for me to put him any higher than the characters on this list, who I feel have done more impressive things than him. For number 27, I have Vince McSanji. I think that ever since Sanji had that major power boost from the raid suit, enhancing his exoskeleton, and Sanji being able to ignite his flames into blue flames with Ifri Janbei, Sanji is definitely in the top 30. Especially seeing how he easily took down Queen, one of the strongest members of the Beast Pirates. I think Sanji has earned his place in the top 30. Then for number 26, I have Zoro. I think it is clear to everyone that Zoro is stronger than Sanji, and he always has been. Whenever the Straw Hats face an enemy group, Zoro always fights against the second strongest fighter, and Sanji will either fight the third strongest or even the fourth strongest sometimes. And the fact that Zoro has Conqueror's Haki gives him the edge over Sanji as well. Zoro was also strong enough to take down King, who was literally the right hand man of Kaido. So I think number 26 is appropriate, because although Zoro has Conqueror's Haki, he actually doesn't have a full mastery over it, so I can't put him that much higher on the list just yet. For number 25, I have Shiryu from the Blackbeard Pirates. Now the reason why I have Shiryu in the top 30 is because I believe that the Blackbeard Pirates will be the final group that the Straw Hats will have to face against before the series ends. And seeing how Shiryu is a swordsman, it's highly likely that he will be Zoro's opponent, which is why I put him over Zoro as of now, because the story is constantly building up this eventual fight between the Blackbeard Pirates and the Straw Hat Pirates. Now for number 24, I have 2 in one spot, a nice Dark King Rayleigh and Scopper Gaban for the same spot. These two were the right and left hand man with Goldie Roger himself, the king of the pirates, so I think it is fair to put them both in the same number. We have seen how impressive the two of them are as well, when we look at how proficient they are at using their Haki. They are not in their prime anymore because of their ages, but even at their old ages, they have still shown some impressive feats. Rayleigh was able to keep up with Kizaru and Navy Admiral and Sabaody, and on Elbaf, Scopper Gaban kept up with Luffy briefly, and he was able to counter the immortality of the Holy Knight with his advanced levels of Conqueror's Haki. For number 23, I have Marco the Phoenix. Marco was the right hand man of Whitebeard, and the series makes sure to let you know that he is very powerful. He has quite the overpowered Devil Fruit, a mythical Zoan fruit that allows him to transform into a phoenix. He also has self-regeneration on top of that, making him even harder to kill. And in his mythical Zoan form, he has kept up with some really powerful characters. At Marineford, he actually fought toe to toe with Kizaru and Navy Admiral. And during the raid on Onigashima, he fought against Big Mom briefly, and even Big Mom herself acknowledged how powerful he is. He also fought in a 2v1 against King and Queen, who are Kaido's strongest combatant, and although he didn't come out unscathed, to be able to fight off the two of them for a period of time is nothing to look down on. For number 22, I have Charlotte Katakuri of the Big Mom Pirates. It has been a while since we've seen Katakuri, but I still think his strength is something that still holds up to this day. He is the strongest Sweet General of the Big Mom Pirates, and his observation Haki skills to see the future are still some of the best that we have seen when it comes to Haki users. Because of his future vision, he could dodge any attacks coming at him, even attacks coated with Haki, so not many characters in the series can actually touch him unless they have equal or higher levels of Haki than him. He was strong enough to match against Luffy in his Snake Man form once Luffy started learning how to see in the future. But for the majority of the fight, Katakuri was a lot stronger than Luffy. so I still think that Katakuri is still in the top 30. For number 21, I have Sabo, the Chief of Staff of the Revolutionary Army and the right-hand man of Monkey D. Dragon. I think he is around the same level as the first mate of the Yonko. And like Marco, Sabo fought against an admiral during Dressrosa, and that was against Fujitora. Even before he had his devil fruit, he was already pretty strong, but after eating Ace's fruit, he was way above Burgess's level, who is one of the commanders of a Yonko crew. And Sabo even survived a small skirmish against Emu and the 5 elders of the world government, and was still able to escape the castle despite being heavily wounded. For number 20, I have Captain Kidd. I know Kidd has a pretty bad reputation in the One Piece community, and has been looked at as a fraud for a long time, but I still think he is pretty slept on. Just from how the story portrayed Kidd, Luffy and Law, the 3 of them were supposed to be the next up-and-coming pirates of the new generation, and we have seen the 3 of them work together and try to outdo one another when they face a common enemy. Kidd was able to deal significant damage to Kaido and Big Mom on the roof of Onigashima, with Kaido even acknowledging his strength. And later on in the raid, Kidd and Law both worked together in taking down Big Mom. Yeah, you can say that Law performed better in the fight, and he was more impressive, but that shouldn't take away from Kidd's contributions in that fight. And also at some point during the fight, Kidd was under the influence of Hawkins' ability, where any damage that would be inflicted on Hawkins would be transferred to Kidd instead. And Kidd was still able to fight against Big Mom in those conditions, so I think that Kidd is stronger than people think. For number 19, I have the first admiral on this list, and that is Green Bull. Even though he's the first admiral on this list, I think he could be interchangeable with the next admiral I have after him on this list. The most impressive thing we've probably seen with Green Bull is that he easily defeated King and Queen of the Beast Pirates. And yeah, the 2 of them were still recovering from their fights with Zoro and Sanji, but it's still really impressive to take down the both of them with no difficulty. We've also seen him solo the Wano Samurai, including Yamato, and he took down Edward Reevil, one of the former warlords of the sea. But I still think he is of the weaker admirals in the series. For number 18, I have Fujitora of the Navy Admirals. I would say he is pretty much equal to Green Bull, but I might give Fujitora the slight edge because he was strong enough to match against Sabo in combat, and I have Sabo above King and Queen on my list. And remember that during the fight between Sabo and Fujitora, Fujitora was actually holding back during this fight, because he was only stalling for time, so that is why I gave Fujitora the slight edge. For number 17, I have Trafalgar Law. Law has always showed some really impressive feats throughout the series, and I think that after his fights with Blackbeard and Big Mom, I think he has just about reached the level of the admirals. Law possesses one of the most overpowered devil fruits in the series, the Opi Opi no Mi, and there is a lot of versatility with that fruit. You can deal internal damage to opponents, which is a great counter to enemies with high durability. And like Kidd, Law was strong enough to outlast Kaido and Big Mom on the rooftop in Onigashima, and he was the more competent fighter during his fight with Eustace Kid against Big Mom. Because Law was able to deal internal damage to Big Mom, she was more wary of Law's attacks than she was of Kid's attacks. And add to the fact that Law has awakened his devil fruit, making it even more overpowered than it originally was. Law is definitely in the top 20. And the fact that he actually clashed and fought toe-to-toe with Blackbeard, one of the emperors as well. Yeah, he still lost against Blackbeard, but it's still really impressive that he was able to keep up with him. For number 16, I have Ben Beckman, the first mate of the Red Hair Pirates. Although we haven't really seen him fight, the story does show us that he is pretty powerful. He's the second strongest member of the Red Hair Pirates, which is a Yonko crew. And it was also confirmed by Oda that Ben Beckman was the one who tore off Kid's arm when Kid first attacked the Red Hair Pirates. And when he arrived at Marineford holding Kizaru at gunpoint, Kizaru didn't even engage him in battle, but Kizaru was the same man who had no issue fighting off against Marco, who was the right-hand man of Whitebeard. So I think, out of all of the first mates of the Yonko crews, Ben Beckman is the strongest one. And for number 15, I have Monkey D. Garp of the Navy. Now if this was Prime Garp, he'll be way higher, but even as an old man, he is still extremely powerful despite his age. Even though Garp is a Vice Admiral, he is definitely on the level of the Admirals. It's just that he doesn't want to be in a high position because he doesn't like to work directly onto the Celestial Dragons. But in the series, we have seen just how lethal his punches are, with one of them being strong enough to stop Marco in his tracks during Marineford. And on Pirate Island, Garp was still strong enough to engage in combat with Kuzan, who used to be a Navy Admiral. So I think Garp at number 15 is quite appropriate for him at his current age. For number 14, I have the giant Loki. Now there is going to be some spoilers ahead for the anime onlys who haven't read the manga yet. I have Loki this high because of what he has been shown to do in Elbaf. He is currently fighting off against Ibu himself, and Loki is actually keeping up with him. Because Loki is so powerful, he was actually offered a position as one of the Holy Knights of the world government, with Loki possessing a mythical Zoan devil fruit that transforms him into the world's strongest dragon, the Warhammer weapon known as Ragnir, and the fact that he is very skilled in Haki. I think Loki deserves to be in the top 15. For number 13, I have Dracul Mihawk. I know this might be a bit low for some people, but I feel that we need to see more of what Mihawk can do. His title of being the world's strongest horseman was enough to put him at least in the top 15, but I think because there are more characters that have shown more impressive feats, I can't really put Mihawk that much higher on the list just yet. And for number 12, I have Monkey D. Luffy. I personally don't think that Luffy has made it to the top 10 just yet. Luffy awakening his devil fruit into Gear 5 is what makes him this high in the list. I think Luffy is now at the same level as the Admirals because of what he has been able to do in Gear 5. He finished off Kaido, one of the 4 Emperors of the Sea, and on Egghead, he actually stood his own against Kizaru, one of the Admirals, which was completely different to their first fights in Sabaody. And in Gear 5, he also stood his own against the 5 Elders when they appeared on Egghead. So I think number 12 is good for Luffy currently. And for number 11, I have Kizaru. We have seen just how powerful Kizaru is ever since his introduction in Sabaody. He is one of the Admirals, which is one of the 3 great powers in the One Piece world that achieved a power balance. And with his devil fruit being a Logia type, which is a very overpowered category of devil fruit, and his abilities being associated with light, this makes Kizaru very formidable. The story has always portrayed the Admirals as being one of the strongest groups in the entire series, and when you look at the weaker Admirals like Green Bull and Fujitora, I still don't think that they've reached the same level as the original 3 Admirals that we saw in Marineford. Now real quick before we get into the top 10, if you guys have made it this far into the video, I would like if you guys could please subscribe as it really helps the channel, and I'm trying to reach 1000 subscribers by the end of the year. And also like this video if you haven't already. Now let's get into the top 10. Now starting with number 10, I have Kuzan. From his introduction, he was one of the 3 original Admirals that was introduced in the pre-time skip, alongside Kizaru and Akainu. So he is still on that higher Admiral level range, which is why I put him so close to Kizaru on this list. But the reason why I gave Kuzan the slight edge above Kizaru was because of his 10-day fight with Akainu, the current fleet Admiral. And it's not like the fight was one-sided, it was actually a high difficult battle for the both of them. And Aokiji and Akainu were both recommended for the role of Fleet Admiral, and that leads me to believe why Kizaru is weaker than Kuzan. For number 9, I have Figarland Shamrock of the Holy Knights. There's going to be some spoilers for the Elbaf arc as well, because Shamrock has only been shown in the manga. So I have Shamrock this high because even though we haven't really seen him go all out yet, he is still the commander of the Holy Knights of the world government, and the fact that he is the son of Figarland Garling, the Supreme Commander, and the twin brother of Shanks, it does make sense why he would be considered powerful too. Especially when during the flashback, Garling stated that if Shanks were to enter a Depth's Covenant with Emu, then he would reach the level of Shamrock. This means that over a decade ago, Shanks was actually weaker than Shamrock. But again, this was over a decade ago, so a lot can happen during that time, because Shanks wasn't even a Yonko back then. What we have seen of Shamrock though, is that he has a weapon that can transform into a Cerberus, and even Loki, the strongest warrior in Elbaf, was afraid of getting hit by his attacks, but he wasn't really fazed by the attacks of Guko, who is another member of the Holy Knights. And we still haven't seen all of what he is capable of, so I think this is Oda just building up more hype for Shamrock. So I think the top 10 is the right place for him. For number 8, I have Monkey D. Dragon, the father of Luffy. Just like with Shamrock, we haven't really seen him in much combat either, but I think from the fact that he is the leader of the Revolutionary Army, and the world's most wanted man, it implies that he has to be really strong. If his right hand man Sabo was able to match against an Admiral, then I don't see why Dragon wouldn't be around or at least above that level. And I think because we haven't really seen him fight anyone just yet, builds up more hype to this character for when he actually does have a fight. For number 7, I have Blackbeard. There shouldn't be any surprise why he deserves to be in the top 10. He possesses 2 powerful devil fruits, and he was able to reach the ranks of a Yonko shortly after the event of the Summit War. He also has powerful characters like Kuzan working under him in his crew. He easily defeated Boa Hancock, a former warlord, when he attacked Amazon Lily. And during the 2 years after Marineford, Blackbeard and his crew took down Marco and the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, which led to Blackbeard officially becoming a Yonko. And recently, he took down Trafalgar Law, who showed really impressive feats against Kaido and Big Mom during Wano. I think for now number 7 is fair for Blackbeard, but I can see him going high up by the end of the series, since I believe he is the true final villain of the series. For number 6, I have Akainu. I believe he is the strongest of the Admirals introduced in the series, especially after he defeated Aokiji for the Fleet Admiral position. and although Akainu hasn't really done much combat-wise in the post-time skip, the story still portrays him as a very powerful enemy for our protagonist. Shortly after Marineford, once Blackbeard noted Akainu was on his way, he immediately left the island, and Blackbeard was still really powerful back then. Even though he was weaker than Whitebeard, Akainu was still able to clash evenly with him, and even blew half of his face off. And even after being knocked down by Whitebeard, Akainu could still continue fighting, and he had no issue fighting against Whitebeard's strongest men, Jinbei and Crocodile, when he was trying to get to Luffy. And when you look at the navy bounties that Cross Guild built for the world government, Akainu's bounty was the highest one. Now I know bounties do not equate to power levels, but the story is at least showing you that fleet emeralds are meant to be taken very seriously, so I still think number 6 is fine for Akainu. On number 5, I have the 5 elders of the world government, except Saturn because, well, we know what happened. I have put them all together in their spot, since they have been shown to be quite equal in strength, with none of them necessarily being above the rest. And because Regal Garling got promoted from the commander of the Holy Knights to join the 5 elders, I feel he must be around their level. I have put them this high on the list as they are above the Fleet Admiral in terms of the hierarchy of the system, and we see just how powerful each of them were when they appeared on Egghead. Just from their grand entrance as one of the highest authorities in the world government, Rob Lucci being so petrified just from looking at one of the elders, which is the first time we've ever seen Lucci like this, to insane feats they were able to pull off on Egghead shows why they deserve to be this high on the list. And the fact that they all have immortality and self-regeneration making them even harder to kill. The only reason why the Straws even managed to escape them was because Joyboy's Haki bailed them out and teleported the 5 elders back to the Holy Land. For number 4, I have Big Mom. Now it's not confirmed if Big Mom and Kaido are actually dead after Wano, but just to be safe, I'll still include them on this list. Big Mom was one of the 4 Emperors of the Sea, making her one of the strongest characters in the series. We've seen how durable and just how menacing her Double Fruit abilities are. Law was only able to deal great damage to her by awakening his Double Fruit so that he could deal internal damage. We've seen how powerful she is from Whole Cake Island just by looking at her interactions with other characters, like how everyone in her crew is so scared of her whenever she gets into a tantrum, and that alone should tell you why she is so feared among the seas. The fact that it took several members of the worst generation to even deal significant damage to her on the roof, and then afterwards killing Law having to awaken her Double Fruit to finally take her down, just shows how powerful she is. And even in comparison to the most powerful pirates, she has proved herself to be on their level. For number 3, I have Kaido. Now some people might disagree with Kaido being at number 3 under a certain pirate I'll get to shortly, but I think just because he was stated as the world's strongest creature, that doesn't make him the strongest character in the series. Because him being the strongest character might be in reference to his ability to transform into a little dragon, since not every character in the series is deemed as a creature. But with that being said, Kaido is easily one of the strongest characters in the series. He was a major antagonist for the majority of the post-time skip, starting from Punk Hazard, where Law and Luffy made their alliance to take down Kaido, all the way to the Wano Country arc, where they finally face off against Kaido. So Kaido was constantly being built up as this ultra big bad that was going to be incredibly difficult to overcome. The only reason Luffy was able to deal the finishing blow was because of the damage that Kaido was suffering from ever since the start of the raid, and Luffy needed a power boost to finish the job. His durability was so good that Luffy needed to go through an entire training arc to enhance his Haki skills just so that he could deal internal damage. And even with Zoro's Conqueror's Haki coating, on top of using Ashura, he was only able to scar Kaido. So I think Kaido being in the top 3 makes sense. Now for number 2, I have Shanks. Shanks is really cool, and the story constantly reminds you why he is one of the strongest characters and why you should never sleep on his strength. We have seen how he easily defeated Captain Kidd when Kid tried to start a fight with him. At the end of Wano, when Greenbull was beating Yamato and the Wano Samurai by himself, all Shanks had to do was flex his Conqueror's Haki and Greenbull immediately surrendered. And this is a Navy Admiral we're talking about. And I know that there is constant debate about who is stronger between Shanks and Mihawk, but I believe that Shanks is stronger than Mihawk. It was stated that Mihawk is a better swordsman than Shanks, but Shanks isn't strictly a swordsman like Zoro or Mihawk. Because even characters like Goldie Roger, Big Mom and Whitebeard, all of them wielded swords, but they aren't considered swordsmen. And also, when Shanks appeared at Marineford, everyone, including the 3 admirals, Sengoku, the Whitebeard commanders, and Blackbeard, they all immediately stopped fighting once he appeared. Even Mihawk himself literally said that he only agreed to fight Whitebeard and not with Shanks, and he walked away once he saw Shanks appear. And with Shanks and Kaido, the 2 of them did fight each other the day before the Marineford War happened, but only Shanks made it to the battlefield, meaning that he was able to stop Kaido from interfering in the war. So this could imply that Shanks is actually stronger than Kaido, especially since when Shanks made it to the battlefield, there were no visible injuries on Shanks' body, and that fight literally happened a day ago. And did I forget to mention that Dory literally compared Shanks' haki to Joy Boy's? The same haki that sent the 5 elders back to Marijua and startled Emu?
I beg your pardon?
And for number 1 on this list, I have Emu. I think it is clear that Emu is the strongest character in the entire series. The supreme ruler of the entire world government, and we still haven't seen all of what he's capable of. There's going to be some spoilers ahead for Elbaf as well. Emu can grant people extra abilities by entering into covenants, which are pretty much contracts that surrenders your will to Emu in exchange for immortality and other abilities like teleportation. We are currently seeing Emu fight against Loki, and Emu does have the upper hand in this fight, and he hasn't even shown his full power yet. Because do you remember that shadowy form that Emu took when he was going up against Sabo? We still haven't seen what Emu can do in that transformation. And based on the story's narrative, and the fact that Emu is the true mastermind behind everything in the One Piece world, I believe that Emu is the strongest character in One Piece. And yeah, that's my top 30 strongest characters in One Piece currently. What do you guys think? How would you list your top 30 strongest characters in One Piece? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.